Let's have a look at how to write a scientific report method section. So the method. For writing a method, you need to think about your audience. In other words, the people that are going to read it and the people who are going to try to use your method to do your experiment themselves. So you need to aim your instructions at a person with a similar scientific knowledge base as you. So in other words, aim at another student who understands how to do things in a lab, just like you do. It is a list of instructions and not a story. So we don't want, and first I did this and then I did that. It needs to be very scientific. So number each step, step 1, step 2, step 3, and start each step with a verb. That means you have to be quite bossy and tell the person reading your method what to do. So put the beaker on the tripod, or collect the equipment, or use the thermometer. So you are starting with a bossy verb at the beginning of each step. And you need to be scientifically specific. So you have to say what equipment is being used, how much water, and how you actually want that method to be carried out in a scientifically accurate, reliable, and valid way. So let's look at an example and we'll try to unpick why each step is well written. So collect all equipment. Remember, I'm aiming this at somebody who knows the same science as me. I do not need to tell them to read the materials section of my report because I've got a list already of all the equipment that I want them to use. Number 2, measure 70 milliliters of water using a 100 milliliter measuring cylinder. So you can see that I'm telling them to be specific, what it is that they are measuring and how they are going to measure it. So they're going to be using a measuring cylinder. And it also told them the size of the measuring cylinder. Now here for step 3, use an electronic balance to measure exactly 1.0 grams of salt. So again, I have told them what the equipment is that they're going to use. I'm telling them exactly how much, and you'll notice I've got some accuracy going on here because I haven't said 1 gram, I've said 1.0 grams, and I've told them what they are going to be measuring. And you've probably noticed also that we've got numbers building up over here at the beginning. So next step, put the water and the salt into a 250 milliliter beaker. So I have helped the student here to know exactly what size of beaker I want them to use. Not one that's just big enough, but one that's got plenty of room for whatever it is they're going to do next. And what they're going to do next is heat the beaker using a Bunsen burner. And again, thinking about my audience, I do not need to say to them, I've got to collect the Bunsen burner, I've got to set up a tripod with a gauze, I need to attach the hose to the gas, turn on the gas tap, like you use a match. I haven't needed to say that because I know that somebody with the level of science that I've got understands how to use a Bunsen burner for heating. And the last step, use a glass stirring rod to gently stir the water until all the salt has dissolved. So I've given a few things here that are important. I've said glass stirring rod, not plastic. There's hot stuff in there. It might be a problem. Just reminding them to be gentle. I will have referred to this in my risk assessment about perhaps glass breaking if I bang one bit of glass against the beaker. And how long for, so they know an end point, they know when to stop. And the last thing you need to add to your method is a diagram or photo. So drawing a diagram of the experiment in action is really helpful. It helps the marker or the teacher to visualize your method. So if you have written a really long and complicated method, here we have a diagram that shows what's going to be happening. It also helps you to spot if you miss steps in your method, or equally if you miss steps in the diagram. So this diagram, for example, is missing a stirring rod. So we could add a stirring rod in here and label that stirring rod. But it also means that you can do the other way around. You can look at your diagram and go, oh, I've got all these things, but I never talked about them in my method. So that can be quite helpful. And you need to take photos as well as you are doing your investigation, because we need proof that you have completed the experiment yourself. Sometimes putting a school diary next to your equipment is quite helpful when you're taking the picture, because it gives us a reference that it was definitely you that's doing it if you don't want yourself in the photo. And also photos are very helpful for showing your results. So you will have your numbers, your numerical data in tables, but photos can be helpful too and save you a lot of words describing what you can see in your results.